to the club or whatever closes at 2, then maybe you'd go eat somewhere.
Did you sleep?
And you end up getting home like 3:20 or 3 maybe 3:30, and I'd probably take like a 30-minute nap and then just get up and go. And yeah, so like some of the nights were like that.
Welcome back, everybody, to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Firstinline podcast. We're super excited. We've done a lot of developments. If you want to check out the new merch, go ahead and click up here. It's a new merch, and I'm super excited to start this off. Got a lot of big things planned, and I'm here with William. William, kick it off.
Welcome back, everybody, and today we have my good friend Estevan. Estevan is here to share us about his story and his story of inspiration and his journey of how he became the greatest EJP. So welcome, Estevan. Welcome to the podcast.
No, man, thanks for having me. It's really an honor and a privilege to really be on this podcast, especially when you've had such like intelligent and talented and inspiring people. So thanks, man. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Like I said, well, we're happy to have you here, and we just want to hear about like how you got here. First of all, let's kick us off with that. How did you get to Minnesota?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Chicago, but it even starts even further. My dad is from Quebrantado, Morelos, and my mom's from Estancia de Animas, Zacatecas. So they both came here. My dad went to California. He ended up in Chicago. That's where my parents met. And that's where I was born. And I was actually only there for first like 3-4 years of my life. Because my dad was actually up here working on a bakery. And in 98, that's when we moved up here from Chicago. So that's how we got to Minnesota.
So I met Estevan, for those that don't know. I met him back in my Cristo Rey days. So I think it was like 2009. So we actually went to like high school together. And I actually never knew that you were from Chicago. I always thought you were born in like Inver Grove Heights.
Yeah, I was born in Chicago, man.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, like, tell us a little bit about the bakery. You mentioned that it's Don Pancho's Bakery.
Yep.
Tell us about that. Like how that all started. I know you worked there, but give us some more insight on that.
Yeah. So Pancho, that's actually my grandfather's name. So my dad named the bakery after my grandfather. And my great-grandfather was actually a baker, too. So it's 4 generations of bakers. And so, yeah, my dad would tell me, like, he didn't even want to be a baker. Like, he was in, the pueblo just selling bread, like, going door to door, pueblo to pueblo selling bread. So he didn't like that. But he came to the United States and tried, like, a bunch of jobs. And, the baker was his calling, I guess. So in Chicago, he had a bakery with one of my uncles, and it went well. They, I think, had like 2 or 3 eventually in Chicago, but they would just rent the space, so it wasn't like they owned the building or anything. Mm-hmm. And then another one of my uncles, I have a lot of uncles, he was already here in Minneapolis, Marisa's Bakery, if you guys know that spot. So he was here, and he's like, yo, there's a lot of Hispanic people. It's, it's up and coming. And so my dad checks it out, and he's kind of going to Chicago here and back a bunch.
Was it because there's a lot of competition in Chicago? I know Chicago is a bigger, like, metropolitan area.
Yeah, man, there's a street that has like 1 million bakeries, and that's where we were at. So yeah, so here it was like, we're probably just a couple years ago, there's been another bakery that's there. So yeah, in St. Paul, it's just Pancho's really. So he put it in St. Paul. My uncle's in Minneapolis, and yeah, that's how that started.
What year do you remember? Like, what year was the bakery?
1998. So.
Jeez, they've been there a while.
Yeah.
So, and then you were born in like 95, so 95 in Chicago, and he was born in. Sorry, I don't mean to put like your.
No, you're fine.
Your
social security number. My social security number is.
I don't mean to put your information out there, but so he's been there a while. So then, when did you like start? With your journey, like, in the bakery, like, so I know you're still involved with it.
Yeah.
Of course you could have just been like, it's not for me. So like, give us some insight on that. Like, when did you start? When did you make your first bread?
Oh, the first bread, I'll start even sooner. I was probably like 10 years old, and I was like cleaning charolas, man. They had me like cleaning like what looked to be like 1,000 charolas. So that's how I started originally, just cleaning charolas. And then when I got a little bit older, like 14, 15, I was a cashier, and that sucked because I'm like an introverted guy, so you have to like
Mhm.
be nice to people and like, hey, how's it going? What do you like? What do you need or whatever.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that, but eventually around like 15, 16, in that summer I started making bread and I thought it was pretty fun.
Mhm.
Only thing that sucked about it is you have to wake up super early, but
Mm.
I kind of got used to that. But every weekend, I would be at the bakery in the morning making bread from like 6 to 12. So like that's like June or sophomore year to throughout the rest of high school.
And both ways, right? Like literally making bread, figuratively making money.
Man, I wasn't getting paid, man.
Oh,
I'm just playing. Yeah, I got a little bit of money, so I always had like some money on me. It was nice.
I was gonna say it's an internship.
It was an internship.
An unpaid internship.
Yeah, pretty much. And then eventually, like, I like learned how to make cakes too. Like, so I pretty much know how to do everything. I've done everything at the bakery. So,
Okay. Was your first bread that you ever made like perfect, or was it like?
nah, that's funny. When I was learning like bolillo, for example, the guy was like, "Well, you need to make 1,000 of them before you make a good one."
Okay.
So like,
And
yeah.
did you think that he was kidding, or was
Nah,
he?
man, they came out ugly at first.
Uh,
So yeah, so it's just about that, like just doing it, and eventually you do it and you do it quickly.
Mhm.
so do you have to like check the internal temperature of like the dough and stuff like that, or like I guess I'm not a
Yeah,
bakery.
man.
I know like a lot of these questions may sound like
No, you're
not the
fine.
smartest, but like yeah, I mean, tell us about
Yeah, like we have recipes, but a lot of stuff is still kind of measured like just like you grab a thing and you put it in, and like in 10 minutes it'll be done, and if it feels good then you take it out and you just make it. So a lot of the bread is obviously there's recipes, but like yeah, a lot of the bread is just kind of like how it feels.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the answer you
No,
want.
I'm just asking. You know,
Yeah.
another question is like as a cashier, when you were like doing that, you mentioned you were a little introverted.
Mhm.
What's your worst like cashier experience? Do you remember?
Nah, I didn't have any bad ones because I was working in the morning, so it was like a lot of like, well, during like my summers, it was just a lot of people going to work and stuff like that. But like if I ever did have to go in the afternoon, that's where like when all the like cute girls came and stuff, so I'd probably be more shy about that. But yeah, I didn't have any bad experiences at that age. Like eventually, like you get a customer that's like mad about this or mad about that, and you have to kind of cool them down. But
Mhm.
it wasn't a big deal, I guess.
Let's see. And then yeah, and then another thing that I wanted to ask is like, you said as a baker, like you wake up pretty early,
Hmm.
right? How early is it?
Yeah, well, we start at 4 in the morning, so just like the other baker, he lives about 15 minutes away, so I think he gets up like at 3:20 or something.
Okay.
So
And you said you got used to that. You still do that sometimes?
no, I still do that. Like now, I'm like this morning I was at from 4 to 8, then I go to my job 9 to 5, and now I'm here. So
Is that crazy? I think that's crazy.
It makes sense, right? Because like the store opens at what 6 in the morning.
6 in the
Remember?
morning.
So
Yeah.
you have to have product out. You have to have fresh product for the first people that come in. So to me, like when I want to go in the morning, it's because I want the fresh bread. Right? So
Exactly.
like me waking up in the morning to go buy, like I expect fresh bread to be there. When and if did you start learning like the business model of a bakery?
And so like every night my dad would go and close the bakery, like get the money and stuff. So I would always go with him,
Mm-hmm.
and I would always just like ask him questions like, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? So that was kind of like the learning for me and how I got like interested in that. And this is like when I was like young.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like kind of knew, I'm like, I want to be a businessman. I want to own a business.
Yeah.
Just kind of from asking that. And it was cool because like my whole life, my dad's like never had like a boss, I guess. So I always thought that was cool. Like he didn't have to really, obviously you're like the business is kind of your boss. You have to be there for the business at whatever hours. If someone breaks in at night, you have to literally go. So but yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. I like that.
And what's like an expense or something you got to keep track of that like people wouldn't think of for owning a bakery? Like I don't know, but like what do you what is something that you would think is common for bakers to know about like running a business, but it's something that the common people probably wouldn't think of or wouldn't know?
Well, like, I don't know, like, there's just a lot of things, I guess. Like, just even like running the oven, like that's expensive. That's like a big expense. Where, if you have I guess in any like retail spot, like a kitchen, that would be expensive. And yeah, I can't think of a certain expense that a lot of people wouldn't really know, but
Like where do you, I guess like
maybe I don't understand your question.
No, I think you get it. I just like for you maybe it's like if you were to ask me what's the one thing that doesn't make sense about working at a school, like I couldn't give you an answer at the top of my head. But like for example, what are your like raw materials? Like what are the raw materials? Like where do you get that stuff from? How often do you have to order that kind of stuff? Like like the dough, like how do you all that stuff?
Yeah. So basically you just have to order all the like flour and like the butter, all that stuff. A lot of it gets there on a truck. And then that's another job I have.
Yeah.
Every Thursday I go to Restaurant Depot and they send me the list, and like I have to like get any other things that are probably better priced there.
Wait. So Restaurant Depot, is that like a store, kind of like a Walmart, or?
Yeah, it's like a Walmart. You need like a membership, and
can anybody can I get a membership there if I wanted to, or
yeah,
or do you have
probably
to like
if you have like a business.
You have to
tax ID probably.
You have like is that required? Like
yeah, so it's kind of like a membership spot.
Okay.
So yeah,
I think Roberto's trying to become a baker, so I don't know.
No, are you?
No, I'm not.
He's like, what are the raw materials?
I just like
he's like Plankton trying to steal the Krabby Patty
sure,
formula. So
I just like I'm always curious about because like everybody has like their own specialty, like their own expertise kind of thing, and like when you become so used to what you do every single day, like it just becomes second nature.
Yeah.
Right. And like you just don't think about those little things that you had to remember at the beginning. Right. So for anybody, right? Like when I interview somebody who has a specialty, it's like I want to know the little things. Like if I was to be a beginner, what are the things that I have to know? Because I also feel like that kind of takes you back to like those days, right? Like those very beginning days, like the things you had to remember, like where you probably had to make a list and now you probably don't have to make a list of different things.
Yeah.
So like I just like always want to know like, so like how do you start? What do you start off with?
I mean, I think it's like anything, like you just have to be willing to learn and not feel like smarter than what it is. So just like being able to like, okay, maybe I'm doing this wrong, or I see what I did wrong and just correcting it. So I think it's about like practice, I guess. And yeah.
So what do you need in order for a bakery to operate? Like you need a cashier, you need a baker. What are the kind of employees?
I think another question, like to piggyback off that question, like what are some barriers of entry to become a bakery like today? To become a baker or bakery to open a bakery shop.
Man, I can't talk about that because then you'll have like a million bakeries popping up.
But, that makes sense.
Nah, I'm just kidding. Nah, I mean, you just have to want to do it first and foremost. It's not like, so yeah, you have to want to put a bakery, and so you'll definitely need a baker, a cashier, and if you just want to do bread, that's really all you need.
One of the things I know this bakery, right? Like, one of the things, especially with like a specialized industry like that, like I know you said 4 generations like bakers, right? I'm sure you guys have like your family like trade secrets, right? That makes like Don Pancho's bakery like success, right?
Yeah.
Like when you guys like are looking for like a baker, do you guys tell him or a new baker or someone that's been there, do you guys tell them everything, like all your secret ingredients, or do you guys like withhold a certain like product information just for like that trade, not just the trademark or that like trade secrets, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and a lot of it is like you just kind of make the bread, and they kind of have to learn how you do it, and they'll eventually kind of pick up on it. But you never give somebody like a recipe or anything.
Okay. Because you don't want them to steal it, or they just need to know like they just need to like know. I guess what I'm trying to say is I guess what I'm trying to say is like, has anybody ever stole like one of your products, right, and then try to sell them somewhere else? Like,
yeah, but like a lot of the recipes, man, they're similar. Like it's it always comes down to like, are you making the bread early? Is that like, if you have like fresh bread every single day, that's probably the most important thing. And like, obviously your bread has to be good, but like, yeah, so if you're always consistent and they can always get there at 6 in the morning and get bread, that's probably the most important thing. Someone that makes the same bread as we do, but like has it at like 2 p.m. probably, like, they might be successful, but they probably won't be because nobody wants to go to that bakery the next day at 6 in the morning and be like, oh, they made this yesterday.
It's true.
So
what happens to the leftover bread at the end of the day?
And you have to throw it away.
Dang, bro.
Yeah.
Does it like break your heart a little bit, or it's just like you get used to
Yeah, it sucks, but you always have to like. That's another thing. You always have to measure like if it rains, people typically like get more bread. So those days you bring out more bread. Like on hot days, you don't make as much bread, but you sell more cakes because like, especially on the weekends or just there's birthdays, people like to get together. So you just kind of balance that out.
Yeah, figure out kind of like your own trends, your business trends, right? Another thing that, you know, how we were just talking about like other bakeries and kind of having the similar recipe. Obviously, like in our culture, I feel like it's very much about like loyalty, like loyalty to the family, loyalty to the bakery, to the brand. But I would love to like know if you have like insight on like how difficult was it to kind of like build up that loyalty at the beginning, coming in as like a new, from Chicago to Minnesota as like a new bakery. Just because like, right, my family has a bakery that we go to. Every family that I know has like their own bakery that like, not that they own, but like the bakery that their go-to bakery, right?
What bakery is it?
So anyways,
Oh,
no, I don't even know.
Oh.
My parents go to a bakery.
My wife's family goes to like a go-to bakery. Like they only go to that bakery.
Which one is it?
I can't say it.
I
Anyways.
I just want to know.
I
You know,
can't say it.
I generally don't know, but like I know my parents, like they've mentioned it
I
before.
know the name.
They've mentioned it before, like they're like, oh, this is where we get our bread, this is where we get like the roscas, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, for me, like when we lived in like South Minneapolis, like our go-to bakery was always like Panaderia del Rey.
Okay.
So that was like, I don't know, from like 2001 or 2 to like 2018. So we always like ordered our cakes and our bread.
Yeah.
Everything's always from
And that used
bakery.
to be one of my uncles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we.
That's what I was wondering. Like.
So do you guys have like a monopoly or what?
No, because like I have my cousin. He's Durango Bakery here on Central, and then Marisa's Bakery that's on Nicollet. We're in St. Paul, and I guess El Rey used to be my uncle's. It's not anymore. But yeah, I was always curious, I guess.
Okay. One of the things I know, like we talked about, is right. Like
Yeah.
you come from a family of bakers, and there's a few family members in like the Twin Cities area that has like bakeries around the area. Like, can you tell us a little bit about how prices are set, and how you guys maybe doing like any potential meetings on like, hey, like we're gonna raise the price of this. Like there's I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, is it like regulated compared to like like gasolines? Like there's like a like government sets the price on like how much the price of gasoline or like milk or like soy. It has to be like. Maybe it's not as regulated. I mean, maybe I'm just asking for like insight. Just the accountant in me is like asking.
Yeah, we never have like formal meetings or anything like that to be like, hey, this is the price of bolillo now. Everyone has to adhere to this. But yeah, like especially when like harina or flour is like getting higher in price or any other things, like we call each other and like, hey, what are you pricing this at? And they'll be like, oh, we're gonna sell this at $1 now. Yeah, I will probably do the same, or just kind of call each other and see if it makes sense to bring up the price or anything.
Makes sense. Okay, so this may be a question that you may or may not want to answer, but as a young guy, like especially like in high school, you and I like used to go out together, right? You mentioned you go to the bakery at 4 a.m., right? We used to go out together. I'll say it, myth, right? Like sometimes we stay out pretty late. Like it closes at 2, right? It closes at 2. Like, did you still make it to the bakery at 4 a.m.?
Yeah, dude.
How did you make it to the bakery at 2?
Like, I can't do that anymore. I really can't.
Okay.
But I used to do that, like, when I would kind of go out a lot. Like, obviously the club or whatever closes at 2, then maybe you'd go eat somewhere,
Did you sleep?
and you end up getting home like 3:20
Mm.
or 3 maybe 3:30, and I'd probably take like a 30-minute nap and then just get up and go. And yeah, so like some of the nights were like that, where you just kind of took a 30-minute nap, like worked, and then got back home at noon and slept for the whole day.
But did you have to? Like, was your dad like saying, "Hey, like Esteban, I expect you to be here, at 4 a.m. No matter what you do, just get here at 4 a.m. because I need you." Or was your dad just like, "Hey, like if you can make it, you can make it. But if not, it's cool, Or I guess I'm just trying to like dig
Yeah,
in a little bit to like your work ethic.
no, yeah, it was definitely kind of like if I wanted to, I could show up at 6, right?
Hmm.
But my dad did expect me at 4,
Okay.
so it was more of like, all right, I said I'd be there at 4,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be there at 4. So it was kind of more like that.
And has that, expectation helped you in a way to become successful, right? Because I know you went to like college and you got an accounting degree in like 3 years. Like, has that, work ethic that your dad instilled in you, help you in any way, or like say like, stay true to your word. If you tell me you're gonna be here at 4, you better be here at 4.
Yeah, definitely, and that's like probably one of the most important things um, to have is like to stick to your word, right? Or and even just to like work hard for what you want. Sometimes you don't have all the advantages, and like whatever advantage you have, you should take. So if it is like maybe I'm not the best worker, but I always show up on time and I always meet every single deadline. Like that's probably sometimes more important than for like the smartest kid or what other advantage you might be missing.
I think it's important. A lot of the times, it's not always about, like being the best in the room or the smartest in the room. Sometimes all you gotta do is, like stay true to like the word, right? Like if you say, hey, like I'm gonna be there, like you better be there, like,
Hmm.
well, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listening to you guys talk a lot, it's I think the important thing about anything, at least maybe not that's not anything 'cause that's like a blanket statement, right? Let's not just be careful there. But it's really important to be consistent, right? Consistently who you are, consistently whatever it is, consistently on time, right? Like even if like maybe you showed up not at the full 100%, but like consistently you were there at 4 a.m., right? Sometimes 60%, sometimes 100%, right? To get a degree, you have to consistently turn in homework, consistently pass a class. Like you have to consistently do something in order to get what you want, right? So, um, talk more about other like unseen advantages. How you're talking about. I think it's really important to what I tell a lot of the students that I work with is like it's so easy to tell yourself like I don't have this, I don't have that, my parents aren't like this, my friends don't have this, right? But why like it's great to understand what you don't have, but it's really important to like know and use to your advantage what you do have, right? So let's talk a little bit about either middle school, high school, bakery, college, after college, some little advantages that you found for yourself that instead of like saying, well, I wasn't born like this, but saying like I was born with this and I use this to really develop into who I am now.
No, yeah, that's like a great point, and that's something I think is super big in my life. Like I never try to look at the disadvantages that
Mm-hmm.
you have. It's like what can I actually do to achieve that? And that I feel like I always think like that. I'm never like pessimistic on
Mm-hmm.
anything. And yeah, like if I'm faced with something, like instead of it like, oh, I can't do that, or like thinking of any challenge like, oh, I can't do that. I try to figure out how, like, what do I have that I can do, and because sometimes you might not achieve it, but you'll definitely be further than what you were previously.
Mm-hmm.
So, so it's just kind of like that. Like trying to think of an example. Like oh, like maybe the school thing. Like I set myself a goal to be like I want to graduate college in 3 years. That was my goal, and like oh well, I don't like I'm not the smartest kid or like this or that, but just kind of putting yourself a goal and sticking to it, and yeah, you might be able to achieve it, and not focusing on
Mm-hmm.
like oh well, some people don't graduate in this time, or like I'm this, like or because during college I worked too at the bakery, like obviously I had a schedule around my classes, but I was pretty much working 40, 60 hours. So it was like, oh, I don't have time to do homework or this or that. But instead, like just creating that plan of like, all right, well, this is my plan, and these are these things that I have to do, and sticking to it and trying to achieve it.
I think it's pretty awesome how you did it in like 4 years and still managed to work like 40 hours full time.
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
And you, sorry, like 3 years, and you managed to like work
3
like,
years, man.
you still managed to work like full time, you know?
Yeah.
Like, for me, I'll be honest, I did my school, like I did, I got my accounting degree in like 4 years, and I feel like I was struggling sometimes.
Did you like school?
I hated school.
Oh.
I didn't like
See,
school.
I hated school.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to be there any longer than I have to be.
That's true.
So that's kind of really the motivation of like trying to graduate quick. And also like financially, you don't want to spend that extra 4 years of money to go to class. And also like the extra year of not earning money. So that's like, I just thought of that. Like, yeah, I need to get out of here quickly.
So you got your accounting degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did that, was there a reason you wanted an accounting degree, or was it just because you wanted to like, you just wanted something to do in business?
Yeah, I mean, at first I wanted to be a banker, but then I lost interest.
You were a banker, but like, you're like not.
No, that was a joke, man.
Like,
But no, I always wanted to be an accountant. Especially through like Cashier, if we're gonna talk about Cashier. In my Higher for Ed program, I worked at the Polad Family Foundation. And I don't know if they still do it, but that year they did it where you got to meet with like the highest level of management that you could. And I met with Jim Polad, which like he owned the Twins, he owned a bunch of things. So it was like a 30-minute meeting with him, and I was like my 9th grade self, like, yeah, I want to be a businessman, this and that. And I was like, what do you recommend? He's like, well, you should go to school for accounting because accountants really kind of know the whole structure of the business, how well it's doing, if it's, lacking here, lacking there. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to be an accountant. And it was crazy because my dad was he did accounting in Mexico. So he was an accountant in Mexico before he came here. So that was another advantage too. Like I already kind of knew what I wanted to do when I went to college. I didn't have to like be like, oh, should I want to do this or do I want to do that? I just already knew that I was going to do accounting, and I just stuck to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question.
That answered my question.
Okay.
Like why you wanted to do it. Like for me, I didn't know I wanted to do accounting until like sophomore year of high school. And
of high school?
Oh, sorry, college.
Oh.
College. But similarly speaking, like at that time when I was in Cristo Rey, I worked at Ag Motion for like 4 years, and I was like so shy, bro. Like it was like crazy. Like actually, like speaking about me being shy, like there's actually one of my friends who's currently like a personal trainer is currently training like somebody that I knew from like middle school, and he was also on the podcast. And because even in middle school I was like an introvert, and now I still am, but I'm like better at talking like in public. And like he had told her that hey, like I did this podcast with William, and she recognized my name because my name is like Zanai, it's like not many people meet like Zanai or whatever. Because but basically what I'm saying is like she was surprised that like I developed from being like an introvert to like hosting like a podcast. So like you develop, right? My point in the story is like I met somebody who went to St. Thomas in my Cristo Rey like work study program, and that's how I decided to become because I had similar advice too, because the CFO and the CEO said hey, like you should like do like accounting or like finance, they make good money. And yeah, so that's what I did accounting as well.
Nice. I did not do accounting.
Do you tell your students that like do accounting or do like because you did chemistry, right?
Biochemistry.
Okay,
it's a level above.
It's very different. It's very different.
For those that don't know, my friend Alberto here, he has a master's degree actually.
I do, yeah.
So, nice.
When I do work with students, right now you're getting a lot of students that like want to be entrepreneurs and they want to, be a YouTuber, get their own business. And I talk to them about like weighing out their options, right? Like you got to figure out what your pros and cons are of going to college or not going to college, right? Because at Cristo Rey, it's a college and career readiness school.
Yeah.
So I kind of come up with a blank statement. If you can get enough scholarships, and this is like very true for a lot of students at Creaster, if you can get enough scholarships where you're going to Creaster, where you're going to a college for free, then take it.
Mhm.
Right? Like it's zero cost. You can do your side projects on the side. You can get a free degree, and then that'll open more doors for you. You can go ahead, right? But then when it starts talking about like thousands of dollars that you're going to be investing, that's when you got to think heavier of like, do I want this degree? What do I want to do with this degree? Right? So I have a lot of really bright students. Like I taught chemistry for sophomores this year as one of the sections. And so one of my students was like, I mean, he had like a 3.99 in my class, and I'm not even gonna get to my teaching philosophy, but I'm a very tough teacher, and like
Mhm.
my expectations are very high. Like I understand how you are, I understand life, right? I don't know everything about you, so homework can be like iffy, but when it comes to like testing, my tests have zero multiple choice questions. Like it's 100% like short answers, long answers, diagrams, because I want to know your way of thinking. And he was always, I mean, there was a time when he had already got the 4.0
Mhm.
for this section or something, for this standard, and I was giving other students like the chance to like reassess and whatever. So he was reassessing because he had nothing else to do basically. So he was reassessing, and he was like doing the 4.0 option, and I was like, hey man, you already got the 4.0 there, and he's like, yeah, but I don't want to leave this blank, you know, and I'm like that tells me a little bit more about him, a little bit more of what he wants to do. And I was always like, well, this kid's gonna go to college. He's gonna get a full ride. He's probably gonna do whatever he wants in life, right? And then he came up later in the year and was like, hey, I have this paper for English, and I'm kind of weighing the option between going to college and not going to college. And I was like, okay, like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I don't want to go to college. Like that, like I do not like the only reason I'm here is because my mom wants me to be here. And then after that, like I don't want to go to college. So I kind of set him down, and I had that conversation of, what do you want to do in life, right? He's like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to own my own business. And so I said, okay, like I'm gonna be realistic, right? Like a lot of businesses fail.
Within a
Like
year.
that's the truth, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it's also like I'm not gonna sit here and tell you you have to go to college, because college is not for everybody. Like it's not for everybody. Um, and if you don't find value in going to college, then this is your life, right? So like make your decision on what you want. He's still a sophomore, so I was like, you have 2 more years, like take your time, apply to scholarships. If you can get into college and not have to pay anything, which I'd be very shocked if he has to pay anything when he goes to college. But
Mhm.
then just go, right? You get an extra 4 years to 3 to 4 years to kind of like figure out what you want to do. You get paid to make new friends, make connections. Go ahead and do that, right? Um, and so I have it's just different conversations with different students, and there's some students that are, you know, it's always at Cristo Rey freshman year, right? It's always, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, right? And it's just like, let's look at the stats, right? The stats aren't all 100% behind you. And then where Cristo Rey I think fails is we get 100% acceptance to college, but then it's like so many drop out in college, right? And for various reasons. um, but I think it's important to kind of like figure out why students are dropping out at college. And I've had conversations with many. I started a Cristo Rey mentorship program
Mhm.
for students in college to kind of try to get to like the bottom of like, why is this happening? Um, and it's just like some students are like, they see one obstacle and they're just like, it's not for me, I'm out. And it's just like,
What do you think kept you in college, or you too? Like what?
yeah. So for me, it was mainly like, since I was a little kid, like I knew I was gonna graduate college. Like that was to me like never really like oh, I don't know if I'm gonna do this. I don't know if this is gonna happen. Like at first it was, I wanted to be a lawyer, want to go to law school. Went to high school, fell in love with chemistry, and then I realized like biology just made a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, well, let me switch to STEM. So then I went into college, majored in biochemistry, and I mean, then I graduated biochemistry, and it was like, but it was never like I always had that mindset of, I'm getting out of here no matter what in 4 years, right? Like there was times where I was like, yeah, maybe I'll switch to bio, maybe I'll switch my major, but it was never like maybe I'm leaving college. It was always um, wanting to get out, wanting to get my bachelor's, and then it was always also like I need, at minimum I need to get my master's.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of just like a mindset that I went in with, and I'm huge on like mindsets, and like I feel like mindsets make a huge difference of the way that you live. Um, and I had too many reasons to go and not enough reasons to get out of college. Like luckily, like my parents were fine, my family was fine, so I don't have to like drop out to support the family in any way. Um, and it was like I was going on good enough money to where it wasn't like a big like burden after college either. So um, it was just too many pros, not enough cons for college for me.
For me, it was a little different. Like you know, going into college, like I didn't know, like there was another alternative to like college, right? Um, in Costa Rica, they teach you, like college is like, the way to go. You get a good job, but I didn't know there was like any other alternative, right? So at St. Thomas, like if you live there, right, it's about like 50. Let's throw in numbers. I don't know like how much it is. Like tuition is like 32, and then living there is about like 10,000-15,000, right? So you're talking about, I don't know, at the end of the day, because you like pay like rent sometimes or like food or whatever. It's school supplies. It's about like a $50,000 investment, a year, right? 4 years, and I did study abroad, took out loans and stuff like that. So it's like 50, 100, like $200,000 investment, right? 4 year, right? 4 years, like it's a lot of money, right? I had scholarships granted, so I went, but I still ended up, like coming out with about like $25,000 in student loan debt, right? So like it's a a checklist, right? If I went because I had a scholarship and I didn't know anything else. But if I had like the knowledge that I have now and I had like $200,000 like banked, I would invest it. Maybe not go to college because there's like a better rate of return in like the stock market, or like if you like empower yourself with the knowledge of like knowing what other options there are. Like for me, I feel like school sometimes wasn't for me, but that's because like I'm at the end of the road, right? Like I went through these experiences to like know that school wasn't for me. Like I don't think I'll ever go back to like school again, like to get like a master's, because it's not for me. Like you said, no, school is not for everybody, and it wasn't for me. But I powered through it because I didn't know anything better. For me, like once I start something, I like to like finish it. I think that's been like something that my dad taught me, because he's always like your dad too, like he said, like, hey, like, if you say, it helps you keep your word, right? If you say you're gonna do this, I want you to do it, right? And I told my parents that I was going to school, and for me, like, I wasn't about to like go to school a year and then drop out because like I already had started it, right?
Did you ever have my bad for interrupting.
No,
Did you ever have the thought of like dropping out?
I did,
Really?
but like I did multiple times because like one, I like to party, my grades were like poor, right? And I didn't have like the best grades, but at the same time, I like to have fun, right? And there were times where I was in the library and stuff like that. I'm like, what else can I be doing if I wasn't doing this? And at that time, like I didn't have a lot of like resources or like any other like ideas on like what to do. So I just decided to like, I'll just stay here until I find something better. So that was my story.
Yeah, I think another thing for me is like kind of doing my part in like creating doors for others that are coming after me. Because like my parents, right, like they came to the U.S., have to work very like difficult jobs in order to like put food on the table, and to make sure that we weren't like getting the effects of being like a first generation family in the United States. And so for me, it's like if I was decent enough at school to where like I was comfortable in a classroom and comfortable like doing research and all this stuff, and like that's gonna open more doors for not just my younger siblings, but like my kids in the future, my younger siblings' kids in the future. Because at that point, like I have connections now, right? I have connections to the education world. If they want to get into anything in the education world, I have those connections now, right? If it was like all my family didn't want to do education, then it just becomes harder for my kids to go to college. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like almost like we have the freedom. I had the freedom to choose education because of my parents, and now hopefully in the future, the next generation of Vergaras have the freedom to enter education if they want, right? Enter into any other like in the sciences and education. Like I have that network now, right? I have the St. John's connections. I have the Notre Dame connections. So like it's just become like because you get money for legacy, right? Like you get scholarships for if someone that in your family went to St. John's, went to Notre Dame, and now it makes it more accessible. Right? Like without Cristo Rey people applying to Notre Dame and these big colleges, like just this year we got 3 students that are going to Notre Dame and 1 student that's going to Yale. And without the people that before were applying and putting the name of Cristo Rey out there, like that would never happen. You know what I'm saying? So it just for me it was also like a motivation of like who's watching me and who's going to benefit off of my grind here in college. And so that also was something that kept me going when it was tough, right? Like we all know it was there were nights where it was just like it was ridiculous, and the amount of work, and then we have to go to work, right? We have a lot more things that we have to worry about that other people in college don't. You know, like making those connections, making sure we're getting decent grades, getting the internships, making sure we're keeping a job, making clubs, running clubs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so that our resume looks that much better and we make the most out of college, right?
So knowing what you know now, Esteban, you know, say like, you know, you had the information, you know, that you have now, and you were like in high school, right? Would you take the same journey as you know, go to school, or would you, you know, like, you know, having the resources that you have, you know, like, be like, oh, I'm gonna stay in a family business, I'm gonna open another bakery? I know it's a tough question, but I mean, what are your
No, that's actually a good question, because originally I was actually not gonna go to school. Like I didn't want to. I was like, well, I'll just, you know, work crazy for like 2 years, save up all my money, and then like put a business, which probably was gonna be like a bakery or like a coffee shop or something, and then just kind of do that until I had a conversation with my older sister, and you know, it was like a long conversation, but the gist of it was like in this life, I'm not saying you don't get respected if you don't have like a college degree or anything, but like your parents have conversations with like other family. Oh yeah, my son went to school, or just anybody is kind of looks at you a little better, like that you have a master's degree, like. So it's always like you have to have as much. I guess what I'm trying to say is like you have to have like as many advantages as possible, because you already don't have a lot of advantages. So that's kind of going back to like what I'm saying, like if you don't have an advantage here that like you don't we probably don't know somebody that has like or that's like a CEO at a Fortune 500 company in our family yet. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we don't have that advantage, so we kind of have to have that. College degree is like one thing, even getting a high school is one thing. Not a lot of people have that. So even getting that, like going and getting a college degree and then going and getting a master's degree, it just gives you so much more, like it puts you on a different level, I guess, in a way. Not that you become better, but you just have more options. And I think that's really important for us, for everybody, to like have as many options and as many tools to do what we eventually want to do, which could be anything, if it's starting a business or anything like that. So that's why I was like, yeah, I need this for myself, but also for my parents to be like, yeah, I came to Mexico, I was on a train, and I could have died maybe, and then I got here, I raised my kids, you know, and I fed them for whatever, how many years, 18 years, whatever. They went to college, and here's this degree, here's that hard work that for them. So I think it's, you know, especially like first generation, it's definitely for them. I think a lot of the time, at least that's how I thought of it. Like, hey, I need to be grateful for that, because I'll never probably have to do that. I'll never have to go to a country that I don't know the language of, and so they already did the hard work. What's, you know, couple years of, I mean, not saying that it's not important, but like what's a couple years of like hard work, studying and tests and this and that, when you, like, you know, when you graduate. I don't know how your graduations were, but like my parents were really happy, so it was like, it was a good moment. So and I don't know if that answered your question correctly.
That answered my question. My piggybacking off that, well, not really piggybacking off that, because my next question is that, you know, related to that, but you know, like you started working when you were like really young, right? And you have a very good work ethic, right? Or a strong work ethic. And recently, you know, like we were just talking about this off air, you took off about like 6 months. You know, tell me about that, because you spent time in corporate America, after like after graduating college, you went straight to work, and then now you took like 6 months off. You were still working at the bakery, but tell me how you decided, like, because tell me about that. Because were you still working at your previous job, or how did you decide, like, hey, like, I'm just taking 6 months off?
Yeah, man. Like a lot of things in my life have just, I guess, kind of been lucky. Like I've just been really lucky of like the people around me or the opportunities around me. Like yeah, like for example that um like I had an apartment, like I was leasing an apartment, right?
Yeah.
And then one of my tenants left, and then I was like, it was around that time, so I'm like, well, I could just live there. I don't have to pay your rent,
Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of things came together that like,
Yeah.
it's just like super lucky, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So but yeah, just having that like kind of plan B in a way, or like even having a couple like some money and like all that kind of facilitated that to happen. So
Yeah, because originally you were at like this really nice apartment. I visited you one time.
yeah,
You live with your cousin,
yeah,
and visited you. It was a really nice apartment, and
Yeah.
it's really close. It's in downtown, and you decided to, like, like you said, the stars lined up. Like, how many units is your other apartment?
so we have 4 with 2 commercials. So it's a Zumba studio and also a grocery store.
And it's in St. Paul, right?
St. Paul, yeah,
And
right
then-
by the bakery.
And one of the units you said, like, with they weren't renewing their lease.
Yeah,
And-
she needed a bigger place because she
Yeah.
had a daughter and things like that, so she needed to get out.
And then you went in there and you were like living rent free.
Yeah, pretty much.
What do you think about that? It's an opportunity, and
Like even that's actually a pretty cool story how that happened. So this is 2017, and I have some money, and I'm like spending a lot of it obviously because you're young, but like I had some money and I'm like, well, I want to buy a house or like a duplex or something. So I start looking on like the Zillows and realtors, all that, and looking for spots. I get a realtor and he starts showing me houses and duplexes, and so I had like my pre-approval. So I was like looking at things. I'm like, all right, cool. This is kind of cool. This is nice. And just like kind of doing that. But every day I would go on this thing called LoopNet, which is like commercial buildings.
Mm.
Obviously, I didn't have that much money to buy like a commercial building.
Mhm.
But I would just look at it, and then the building that we have popped up. And I'm like, damn, that's expensive. I don't have that much money.
would
But-
you be willing to share how much
Yeah.
the sale price was at that
Yeah,
time?
they wanted $690, so
Okay.
$690,000,
Hmm.
and on a commercial, you can't get away with like a 5% like
Mhm.
FHA loan. It's 20%.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, and that's when kind of seeing all your disadvantages, like the odds are against me. Like I don't even have the money, so why am I even like entertaining this, right?
Mhm.
But like for me, I'm like, well, how could I possibly obtain that?
Mhm.
And that's where you just kind of start thinking and working like, all right, well, I have this much. Let me figure it out. So obviously I talked to my dad. He's like, well, let's check it out. Like maybe I'll go in on it. And talk to my realtor. We check it out. I'm like, wow, so it's cash flowing. Like, everything's rented. And it's like what I'm saying. Like I just get really lucky in my life. Like the lady that owned the building really needed money.
Mhm.
So we give her a pretty disrespectful offer, but like she bites. So,
How much was a disrespectful offer?
450, bro.
Wow.
That
That's the offer we offered her.
at a 690
90.
on that.
So that's another thing. Like,
You took a risk, like the
Yeah,
worst they can
like-
say is no, right?
yeah. So I already don't have that building right at the time, and like, but like it wasn't that disrespectful because the building like was not really worth 690 at the time.
Mhm.
It's like now in this market probably 800. I don't know. But so we made that offer. She's like, no. Then we like figured out a number that wasn't 690, and it just happened. But like, I don't know. It was just me being on that site and like, I guess dreaming big, and like eventually I'll probably get one of these spots. I don't know. I'm looking at like a $250,000 duplex, but yeah. So that's kind of how that happened, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. So, how much is the building worth now? Because compared to you don't have to say it, but I mean, it'd be pretty cool if you shared it for our listeners. Like,
yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. I haven't like really checked, but
I mean, like maybe like it's different for like residential properties. Maybe they appreciate differently than businesses. But at that time, it's been like 5 6 years now.
2017, yeah.
Yeah, since that one. So I'm sure you got like pretty good appreciation.
Yeah, I mean, even a year later, somebody offered us $100,000 more than we paid for it.
Okay.
But, so like,
And you said no. You
No.
were there, and because of that, that risk taking opportunity, and the willingness to like try something new, you were able to like acquire like a
yeah, and not
commercial
seeing it as like unattainable. Like I don't think a lot of things are unattainable. Like obviously, there's certain things you really like. If you're not like 6'5", you probably can't be a basketball player. Maybe I don't know, but like a lot of things are attainable. I think, and I feel like I don't know. It's good to dream big, and if you don't achieve that crazy huge dream you have, you're probably still ahead of what you were at.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I like to think, like in anything.
What advice would you give to like a younger you?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, everything that's happened has led me here, so I guess keep doing what you're doing. But I guess some advice that I would give myself now for like my future self would be like get everything else in order too, like because everything is important, like financial, like spiritual, mental, and like your health. So just kind of get that in order, and that's kind of what I would tell my future self, or my now, what I think I should do for my future self. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So thank you for sharing that. I think that's pretty cool advice. At the end of the day, things do work out. Like a lot of times, I don't know. For me, at least, I feel like I have anxiety of like, what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't? What if? What if? Like, but it's what if, coulda, shoulda. Doesn't. If it works out, works out. Like I feel like I'm getting better at that. If it doesn't, then why am I focusing on something that is a hypothetical never is gonna happen event? So. Yeah, that's a different story though. So, anyways, here is Alberto with our next session.
Yeah, so we're gonna finish off with some fun quick fire just to kind of get to know you on a different level. We talked a lot about the bakery, talked a lot about investments, a little bit about college. So this is kind of just like to wrap it up, give you a more like human side to who you are and what you enjoy doing. Yeah. So this is quick fire questions. So I'm just gonna give you questions, try to answer them 2-3 seconds, whatever first comes to your mind. If you need more time to answer one, that's fine. But you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. First one is favorite superhero.
Batman.
Favorite hobby.
I have a lot.
Favorite. What's your favorite? Top 3. Give me top 3.
I love go-karting. Okay. I love disc golf. And I'll throw in skiing, even though I don't ski that much.
Okay. Favorite movie of all time.
I'm gonna have to give you top 3.
Okay.
I'm going Batman.
In order?
Not in order.
Okay, so just
I'm going Batman. I'm going American Psycho.
Okay.
And I'm going Uncut Gems.
Best disc golf player in your group.
Top 3. Me.
Nice. I like that answer.
Second, I don't know. They're all really good, to be honest.
If you had to choose.
I can't, man. I really can't.
Yeah. Favorite childhood memory?
I didn't really have a childhood, man. Nah, just I think the late night rides with my dad, going to the bakery and just talking to him.
All right. What was your favorite subject in school?
Probably religion.
Religion.
Yeah.
Nice.
Money aside, what's the one thing you would do today?
What do you mean, money aside? Like if
money
was an object, what would I do right now?
Yeah.
I don't know. Go to a Formula One race.
Okay.
Nice. 3 things on your bucket list.
To go to a Formula One race, to visit Europe or just get overseas, and to I don't know, man. I think those are the 2.
Okay. Last question here. Unless you have another one. All right. Who do you think is the greatest athlete of all time?
That's hard, because I think Messi's great. I think Michael Jordan is great. I think like Max Verstappen is great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with those three.
Those three. You don't have a one greatest athlete of all time.
No,
No.
I can't.
All right. Well, let's just slide for this one.
Thanks.
All right, you got that, camera. You got about 30 seconds, whatever you want to say. Special shout outs, last minute comments, and then we'll close out.
No, I just want to say a huge thanks to William and Alberto for this opportunity to have this conversation and
Nelson.
and Nelson, yeah.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the
I was gonna say behind the scenes, but I didn't know. But yeah, so just thank you to all you guys, and this was really fun. I had a good time.
Awesome. Well, there you go, guys. Season 2, we kicked it off. Episode 1 in the books. Please like, comment, subscribe, visit the page, visit everything down below. We have all the links. If there's anything you guys ever want, reach out via Instagram in our comments. I think we have an email. So reach out via email. We appreciate all the support. Thank you so much. Season 2, here we go.